Yo, BJ Gaddour with the BJ Gaddour podcast. And joining me today is the legend himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Jeremy Scott, Jay Scottsdale, the most fit man in the game, they say. All right, this man is on top of his game. He's here to join me today to talk about a plethora of issues, a good handful here. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. We're going to talk about Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, this Netflix event coming up. We're going to discuss Boxing 101. Because my new Ultimate Boxing Trainer is now available exclusively on the Jeremy Scott Fitness app. You got to check it out. And then we'll also talk about sled training. You know, both Jay and I are huge into the sled as old men who like to get as shredded as possible for summer. And then I'm sure there'll be various topics that come in as well. Jay Scott, thanks for joining me today. You want to kick us off with how things are going in your life right now?
Yeah, well, as always, thank you for having me. It's just the same old here. Just wash, rinse, repeat, man. Same old drill. I am watching way more basketball probably the last 2 weeks than I've watched in the last 2 years. The first round, I like the NBA playoffs, is always like my favorite time to kind of watch basketball.
So let's start there. Why is the first round so appealing? And by the way, I agree because especially like those 4-5 matchups. Where there's no difference between these teams. It's just going to come down to like who's healthy or who makes that final play at the end of the game. But why do you like the first round so much, and what's been standing out to you in this particular first round of the NBA playoffs?
I mean, the finals are amazing, obviously, but it's like you get one game, and this way, it's like by the time I pop home or depending where I'm at, I'm like I can get 3 games, like kind of just streaming back to back to back, whether I watch them all or not. It really doesn't matter. But when you watch like an NBA playoff game compared to like a regular season game, like if it's game 45, nobody really gives a shit. But these games, like even last night I got home, what was it, Pacers and the Bucks. And it's like a 20-point difference, but the crowd is just so loud and so into it, even though like the gap is 20 points. If you're watching that game in, December, it's really not the same atmosphere environment.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously the stakes are at its peak. And then, you also really see, there's this whole NBA marketing campaign this year. Playoff Dame is not a thing. Playoff Jim, this isn't a thing. But when you see the really good players, they have, they've been playing like on a 7 or 8 out of 10 the whole year. Or it starts at like a 5, 6, midway through the season, they blow it to 7 or 8. And then you see, oh, wow, these guys have like an additional gear or two they can get to. And then everybody else doesn't. The mental part of it is what really eludes them, right? Like they just don't have they're getting tight, right? They don't have the ability to manage the increased crowd energy and noise. That's what's really just crazy when you see that there just are guys that, like, you can say you can't just flip the switch. No, some guys just flip the switch and they completely elevate to a whole new level. That's what's really exciting to me about the first round too. It's just the dramatic shift from what so these guys really do are pacing. They're really pacing themselves.
Well, you watch like Jamal Murray, for example. Like if he averages 7 or 8 more points a game in the playoffs in the regular season, it's like a 25% increase, which is insane to see. So it's like he goes the whole year. And then all of a sudden, like in these games, it's a 7, 8, 9, 10-point rip on top of what he normally does, which is crazy to see.
I'll tell you what, man, what he did to the Lakers, what he's done to the Lakers the last 2 years, but particularly this particular series, because, Denver didn't play very well. Denver looked very beatable throughout the entire series. The Lakers led 70% of the games.
That's crazy, yeah.
And it was actually also one of those series too, where like, oh wow, like it really matters who's your coach. It really matters who the coach is. Like I think if they would have flipped coaches, no doubt would they still be playing. But I would argue it would be a game 7 and it would be a toss up. And maybe the edge goes to Denver just because they have the home court. But Mike Malone so thoroughly outcoached Darvin Ham in this particular series. Like, dude, he was so locked in. They were up, I think it was game he just had to make sure they won game 4, and they were up like 10 or 12. The game was over, but he was strategically taking timeouts with like 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left to ensure that a specific play was ran just to make sure the lead was over 10 in a way. And Darvin Ham's ending games with like 2 timeouts and 2 challenges, like just sitting there with his hands in his pockets. And so it was, I don't know if you agree with my assessment that if they flip coaches, the series is, well, I know the series is still playing. I watched every preseason game. I even watched some summer league this past season. Like, I'm officially in old man mode here on my retirement living room couch. But whether they ended up winning the series or not, who knows? And now they've got to go play a Minnesota team that, like, I still don't think, when you're that young, you have enough experience together. I think Denver still is going to find a way to claw out of it. But this Minnesota matchup, especially the way they looked as vulnerable as they did against the Lakers with all their injury issues and coaching issues, it's going to be fascinating, man. And the West this year is unbelievable, like so good to the point where it's not even been that much fun to watch the Eastern Conference playoffs, to be honest. Maybe besides like the Knicks and Philly.
Well, yeah, I mean, like Timberwolves, they play defense for sure, and they have a lot of pieces, but I just think Denver is just better. Like they're just the older dudes that have been there, and it's like when you watch those guys, like when you really watch a playoff game, like just like all 5 dudes that start for Denver are legit dudes. Like you just kind of think like, oh, like Porter Jr., he's like 6'10", and it just doesn't seem like he is. And then all of a sudden you just see Caldwell Pope, like I remember just one play he gets a steal and then just like takes off and just crams it, and I'm like, oh yeah, you can do that too. And then like Gordon is like your 3rd or 4th option, and he's just like this monster of a dude. It's like their team is like they're really good, man. But in the same thing, like the Lakers, like we'll just have dudes that wouldn't show up, like whether it's Hachimura or Spencer or whatever. Some of these dudes are having zeros. Like they're scoring 0 points in playoff games, which is fucking wild to me. And so I think Denver beats the Timberwolves, but I don't know. It should be a good series, I would think.
I mean, and obviously there's this whole before getting into the Minnesota piece, with Denver, and there were moments watching this series where I'm like, oh wow, like this is the Chicago Bulls. This is what it felt like when I would watch the Bulls on, trying to go back to back with the three-peats. They would show vulnerabilities and they would play with their food a bit in the early rounds, but then it's closing time. Last 4, 5, 6 minutes of the game, and they just get it done, or they'd give a game or two, and then Michael Jordan would find a way to get motivated enough to show up. So they just have that, like everyone on their team is not being asked to be overextended, right? Like they're asking AD to basically play defense for everyone on the floor and then drop 30 points and get 20 rebounds every game. They're asking LeBron at 39 to play 40 plus minutes, lockdown defense, and then still get his like nearly 25 to 30 point triple double while defending Jokic, while boxing out Aaron Gordon, and you can just see at the end of the games, bro, like Aaron Gordon basically secured the victory, in my opinion, with his offensive rebound over LeBron right at the end of their last game. He outmuscled him, took the ball. It was like a true, like, wow, like he's old. Like, this is what happens when you're making the other guys are not doing their role and you're asking your star guys to like pick up the pieces, especially in Denver, man, with that altitude. Like there's just no way. There's no way you can have your legs at the end of the game. But they do remind me, like they do have that Chicago Bulls element. Jokic didn't even play particularly well. And then obviously Jamal Murray is one of the most clutch players I've seen. And I'm less upset about it now because I found out he's half Arab. I don't know if you knew that. His father's from Jamaica, his mother's Syrian. So okay, at least a half Arab. Yeah, as a half Arab myself, I'm like, okay, if that's the guy that's going to put me out of my misery, fine, I'll accept it. But with I mean, obviously you're seeing all these comparisons. As a diehard MJ fan, I'd love to hear your take too. But the young man in Minnesota, that they're all calling the next MJ, Anthony Edwards, the Ant-Man. There's some similarities for sure. I was blown away by just the trash talking to Kevin Durant, like in game 1 of the series.
Well, it's weird because they have like that thing. It's like that internet meme going around, like he's like really MJ's kid. Like they do like this, like they have the timelines all matched up, like this conspiracy theory. Then they split the faces in half, and they do all this stuff. Like I don't know about all that, but like he does play like for being so young. Like he doesn't force the issue. Like he just kind of plays the game where he'll take the shots he needs to take. He doesn't take terrible shots. Like he takes difficult shots. I go, but that's what ballers do. But he just like he kind of just lets the game go at the pace it's going. Where a lot of dudes who are young, just like every time, like like when you watch like Iverson just is a menace and just forces the issue all the time. Where Ant just kind of like, let me just play. If I only have 12 points at halftime, like it's cool. And then the third quarter comes out and the dude drops like 18. And he does everything else though too. Like he plays defense, he rebounds, he passes. Yeah, he's legit, man. Like he is the real deal.
So explosive. So, I mean, some of obviously the poster dunks, very MJ-esque. He also takes a lot of those, what was so great about MJ too, very rarely were they're like square on dunks. Like they're always, it's a shoulder turn at an angle, like there's just there's an aesthetic there that's really interesting. And it's funny too, because his favorite player was Kevin Durant, and he plays nothing like, KD. But obviously, I'm sure you've seen this too. This is the first time in over a decade where Steph, KD, and LeBron are not in the second round of the playoffs. Like a true changing of the guard. And yeah, I mean, you can see it. These young guys. I mean, this is not even to mention like Wembanyama coming up. Dude, it's. I don't know how you. The thing is, you mentioned too, like they kind of don't get up for the regular season games. Well, you can't not get up for these games in the West anymore, because the difference between the 1 and the 8 was it's about 10 games, and you get all these guys kind of crowded around like, 3 through 8 was a couple games separation. So they've really gone out of their way to make like the parity is just, it's almost like too much in my opinion. I like there being super teams personally. I grew up in that era. I like a dynasty and then everyone else trying to get after the dynasty. But now it literally is it's like a bar fight in the Western Conference.
Well, yeah, and you have this huge shift too of like the dudes that you just have to appreciate it because they're not going to be around that much longer. Like LeBron, KD, and Steph, and like they don't come around again. Like there's just like one LeBron, and the amount of people who are like happy like LeBron loses is wild to me. I'm like, even if you're not like you don't like love the Lakers, like the dude is old as shit and he's still doing this. Like it is just wild to watch. Like he still plays defense. He still can, like, obviously he's not as athletic, but I'm like, he's a freak show. And he can shoot now, and just to watch him like that he plays every night for the most part, like I can't, I'm just trying to like imagine myself like running up and down. I'm like, Jesus, dude, your body just beat to shit, and he does it at such a high clip. Same thing for KD and Steph too. It's just to watch it and be like, yeah, these dudes are been doing this for 13, 14, 15, LeBron 20 plus years, and then to have if Anthony Edwards' favorite player is KD, to end up playing against him and then talk shit to him like as you're playing is like it's actually pretty badass.
No, it is, yeah, and that's the thing about that guy. That's like, okay, so he has a, because you do have to have a little bit of a delusion of grandeur, especially when you're younger. We both had it when we started our fitness businesses, to think that we would get to this point at any point from where it started. It is delusional. I think people around us probably felt that way. I know you've talked about it at your podcast before, that maybe the only person who believed was Heather. And even then, I'm sure she had her moments privately where she's like,
Sure.
I don't know if this is going to be a business. Because, that's just how it is when you start something with no blueprint on your own. But the refereeing has been awful. This is some of the worst officiating. Like they'll do a review. You'll clearly see what's going on there, and they won't overturn it, or it's obviously the big buzzword has been marginal contact. Like it goes. It's not. There's no consistency whatsoever. Their replay system is beyond the fact that it can take 5+ minutes, break up the flow of the game. They don't seem to get the calls right. There's no consistency in how they're applying the rules. They got to do something about that in the offseason. But that's really been the only negative I've seen so far, because they've been competitive games. I don't know how Mavs and Clippers is going to turn out. I mean, Kawhi's hurt again.
Yeah, I mean, if the Clippers could ever be healthy, man, they're a force. But it's like never been the case. It's just and the same thing like with the Suns. Like, yeah, you got those 3 dudes to play finally, but I'm like, they just don't have enough pieces. Where I think like the Clippers probably do. It's just the problem is you always have at least Kawhi or somebody not playing, and for those dudes and those teams, like you have to have all your key dudes playing right now. Like the same thing for the Bucks. Like, what are the odds they really beat the Pacers? I mean, even if they do, it's like they're done after that. Like you need your top dudes to play this time of year.
So I said before the playoffs started, I think Denver's going back to back. Is that where you're at?
Yeah, I don't see anybody beating them, really. I just can't imagine, like, whether it's Boston or anyone from the East, and I just don't think the Timberwolves are there yet.
The only thing I can see is if Murray's got this calf issue now, though he had no problem against us and closing us out in Game 5. But you know the calf, especially in a game like basketball.
Dude.
You're one step away from it not only tearing the calf, but it being an Achilles issue. Barring something like freak accident like that, I just don't see. MPJ Porter Jr. is like a 6'10" Klay Thompson. I mean, they don't even ask him to do much. He just he stands there and then occasionally goes from baseline to baseline, and then no one can block that shot. And then now Aaron Gordon is not going to have another matchup like LeBron the rest of the way.
No,
so
dude.
It's going to be
to have him as like a 3rd, 4th option. He's just a monster, dude. Like, and he used to be the man back in the day, and now you have this dude just hanging out, and he can get you 20 and 10 on any night. And that's like the nice luxury most teams don't have.
You know what occurred to me? And I could be wrong. Maybe you've seen it, but I have yet to see the best basketball player in the world dunk. I haven't seen Jokic dunk. He went up.
I think he had one against. Well, I think there's one against the Lakers, like kind of a fast break.
The one you're talking about though was he didn't really. Because I know, I'm like, that's when I was like, wait, I don't think that was a dunk. And I'm trying to think, has he ever dunked? Because he just prefers to lay it in. He's such a finesse. He's big and he's bouldering. And he waddles down the floor and just casually gets triple doubles almost every game. But I don't know if I've actually seen him dunk. Not that you need to, obviously, to be the best player in the world, but that guy is
crazy, man. He just cooks everybody, and he just seems like so nonchalant. Like, I'm just here to work, and that's it, and I'm gonna play, and then I'm not gonna think about anything other than my personal life. Like, he just seems like where you watch AD or Ant or something. I feel like they live basketball. Like every second of the day, they probably sleep with one. And Jokic just seems like, I'm just here to go to work right now, and then I'm out of here.
No, he sleeps with his horses.
Which is on commercials now, which is fucking amazing. Do they little pony commercials walking through the hotels? That's wild.
I also like to see the marketing teams that do sponsor work with him. They're working really hard to pull some form of personality out of him. You see the whole Despicable Me thing?
Yeah, he's better than Kawhi, but not by much.
Kawhi won't even give you a smile.
It's bad. Yeah.
It's like this is a 6-figure deal. You can at least show some teeth.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why he does that. Cause I feel like there's clips from him in college where he would dance around and be cool and kind of have fun, and then all of a sudden he just got in the league and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I'm just gonna be a mutant," and that's it. And he's just held on to it. Where Jokic will at least I mean, he's doing the deals, so obviously he's in the commercials now, so he's making money. And but yeah, the Despicable Me one, the different hotel ones I've seen. I think he has one other one too.
But that gives me the opportunity to say one of the worst ads I've seen out there right now. I don't know if you've seen it. It's SGA and
Chet.
Chet singing a 90s pop song. I don't know who, like, for that to work, it has to be so bad it's funny, or it has to be like, oh, these guys actually can hold a tune, and it tragically falls right in the middle of it being bad but not funny. I don't know what happened, but
it's like What a Girl Wants, I think.
Yes, that's the song.
Is it Christina Aguilera? Maybe?
It is, yeah.
But I don't even know what the commercial's for. I've seen it 50 times.
I actually forget too. No, it's a terrible ad. It's not a good ad. As someone who, like, I actually had dreams of going into making commercials when I was younger. That's how strange I am. And I studied. I love, I love a good marketing campaign, a good ad that hits, that can make you smile or create emotion in a short period of time. And like in a chaotic world, this thing stands out, and it kind of gets in the ether. Like, that's always fascinated me. So I'm very aware when one does not hit. By the way, this is part of the game. Some hit, some don't. I know what they were going for. At the same time, too, like, you got to have a team in place that's like, this ain't it. Before we transition, you're watching on YouTube. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to win the NBA playoffs. We'd love to hear your feedback. Let's shift to what could very well be the most lucrative, watched, popular, notorious boxing, I guess, or even combat event of all time coming up. Mike Tyson, the 57-year-old Mike Tyson, against the what do you call the bad boy of YouTube, Jake Paul.
It's crazy that that's real. It's just crazy to me.
No, this does feel like this is an alternative universe we're living. Like, I literally have shifted to a new dimension, that this is actually an event. But beyond, like, being, like, you and I grew up huge Tyson fans, like,
all time.
Like, I never want to meet him. I just, like, because again, like, a lot of people are like, I have no interest in meeting him, but I don't want to live in a world without Mike Tyson. I posted that on one of his recent posts on Instagram. So I've been following him prep for the fight. And I've never had a comment I've made on someone else's account get that much engagement. People were like, some people were like, oh my God, I'm in tears right now. Another guy was like, like, how this is unhealthy behavior, or you better get used to it because he could be gone anytime. Like, what are you talking about? But the reality is, like, I don't know a life without having Mike Tyson to be such a pivotal role. Growing up, I got Mike Tyson tank top on. So we're in it, but, like, there's also so many things to unpack from the fact this is an actual event on Netflix. It's going to be free on Netflix. This is an event that they would have charged, $100, $200 for 5 years ago. And they know they can't do that, but they know they can get the most eyeballs ever to watch this fight. What was your initial reaction to it? I know a lot of people are like, this is disgraceful. I'm disgusted. Mike Tyson's going to hurt himself. What was your initial reaction to it? And has it changed since the announcement, or are you still kind of where you were?
I mean, like, it's all a freak show, right? At this point, I go, it just, that's what it is. But we watch freak shows, like, we watch train wrecks. That's what we do, and they're not stupid. Like, the Paul brothers are not dummies. Like, they became rich as fuck by doing things like this, and to get to this level of it is, I mean, I do feel like we're living in some kind of simulation where this is not, like, even the real world. But honestly, like, the same way when I saw, like, because McGregor did it. This is the Conor McGregor. Now and I'm a Conor fan, just of, like, because I watched him from young till now. Just like what he's done career wise, like whether you like him as a person and all the dumb shit that he says. He is a fucking, he's a cartoon character. It's fucking why it's like to listen to him just like talk shit and do these voice messages on Twitter, which I can't. I think he's the only person who ever does voice messages on Twitter. But when he's going to go fight Floyd, I'm like, I know he's not going to beat him. Like, because Floyd Mayweather, fights a certain kind of way, can fight for basically 3 days in a row. Connor's fast twitch. If he knocks him out quick, sure, but Floyd's not that dude. And I'm like, did I pay for it? Yeah, I paid for it. And the dude made $100 million like off that fight. And so you've just watched the kind of the evolution of that, like where, again, Francis Ngannou goes and fights Tyson Fury and knocks him on his ass, like, which is wild. And the most money Francis ever made. So this is just like a version of that. It's just not two dudes like in their primes. You have literally the most famous boxer that will ever, I mean, I guess Ali and him, but you could argue it's the only thing where it's like it's Michael Jordan and it's like Larry Bird, I guess, you know, like where everybody knows Ali, everybody also knows Tyson. Like people will know that name forever. And then to fight a kid who used to be a fucking Disney kid who's now become like a real boxer, and I'm assuming he's just juiced to the gills because the dude looks fucking enormous compared to like what he was. I don't know. I'm like, it'll be a freak show train wreck. But will I watch it? Yeah, for sure. Would I box if I was in my late 50s? No, but I'm also not Mike Tyson. I know he's Mike Tyson, but like Father Time is the only person who's undefeated. It's like the Kenyon Martin quote, like the only person who could guard Prime Shaq was Father Time. And I feel like this is it too. Like, what is Jake Paul in his 20s?
Yeah.
I mean, dude, when you're in your late 20s, like 30, you're kind of prime mode for most people. And not a lot of pro dudes in their late 50s in their prime range.
Before I share my thoughts, what's your prediction on how that goes down?
I mean, if it's like a fight, how big is Jake Paul?
I think he's about so I know Tyson's coming in at like 220, and Tyson's like 5'10". I think Jake Paul's about 6 feet and 200 pounds. I'll look it up when you're talking. But he's got a big overhand right. He really does. And anytime you're over 200 pounds, you are talking about one punch away. But yeah, that's interesting too. There, I don't know if there's any drug testing for it. To me, that would be mandatory.
Yeah, but they both got to be juiced up, bro. Like, you're in your late 50s, you got to be. You have to be just to recover and just do basic shit. I mean, and all the damage you take, I think it adds up over time. Like it's not like it goes away. You just acquire damage as you go. And Jake's really never fought anybody where he's took a ton of damage. I guess the Fury fight, which I only saw clips of it, I guess a little bit, but otherwise he's fighting like MMA dudes who aren't really strikers, and these fights aren't going the distance. Where Tyson's lived a life and a half. He's been through it. So if I had to bet money, I don't know, man. It seems like the longer it goes, like if you're 57, the worse it'll be for you, just your gas tank and the damage you collect and everything. But he is also Mike Tyson. So I guess I'd say Paul, just because he's like 30 fucking years younger and like this is all he does now. But I'd love to see Mike knock him out, but I don't know, man. It just seems like that's not going to happen, sadly.
So he's 6'1", 200 pounds, but apparently he might be trying to gain some size for this particular fight, because that's the one thing too. If you study Mike Tyson's career, he really only struggled against big, tall guys. Guys like 6'5", 260 that would have a really big. It would just be jabbing down on him, and it wasn't an issue when he was young in his prime and peak condition with the discipline intact, a good training team intact, because his movement would allow him to get in on the inside and just bust them up. where he struggled later in his career after jail, basically, when, and as far as I'm concerned, he was training himself to get ready for these fights. He became a sitting duck if he couldn't get these guys out in the first 3 to 5 rounds because he didn't have the conditioning, he didn't have the head movements. And then, people don't talk about this enough with Tyson. Tyson's chin was next level because at 18, he had like a 20-plus inch neck that would just eat punches. But the thing is with boxing, if you study it and you see these guys as they age, it just takes a couple brutal knockouts, and you, even with a good neck, you'll lose your chin. It's like the concussion. Once you get a concussion, it's easier to get another concussion, and the symptoms from those concussions get exponentially worse. So that would be my concern, is that he gets one overhand right, and because again, like, people, I don't want to remember it, but like the way he went out to like Lennox Lewis killed like some of Mike Tyson's ancestors in that fight. I got to know how Tyson even stayed up as long as he did. Now, that would have been, and it was, by the way, a totally different fight when those guys sparred in the 80s. And Lennox Lewis didn't want any part of that Mike Tyson. No one did, because, again, it's about speed and movement. There's never a still target. And the movement, as we'll talk when we get into the boxing, the movement is what creates all the power in his punches. His defense sets up all that pivoting, rotating, positioning, sets up all the power in the counter punches that made him legendary. That's what's gone. But obviously, I think I think they said too, and I think things are going to change as the fight approaches. It seems like they have already, in terms of like, this was not going to be a professionally sanctioned bout. Now it is. Early on, they were saying you only win if you knock someone out, but there's no winner or loser. But that's strange. So I don't know exactly how it's going to end up going down day of the fight. If it goes past 3 to 5 rounds, I don't have a lot of hope for a 57-year-old Mike Tyson. But if Mike Tyson in the first couple rounds just goes to Jake Paul's body, gets on the inside, I think he'll knock him out.
Yeah, if he can get close and get inside, it's just like, again, like I've only seen Jake Paul like the couple fights against dudes who just don't really box, but they're like real fighters, or like they're real dudes, and he sleeps them, dude. Like, they're done. Like, oh man, it would suck, dude, to watch. You just hate, like, it's the way I feel like the Jordan with the Wizards. Like, I just pretend like it didn't exist. And not that he was trash, because he was still good, but I don't like to remember that. Like, I think that's where you remember Shaq, like with the Celtics, or like Cleveland, and people that now see him on TNT and they're like, oh, Shaq, whatever. I'm like, no, dude, I'm like Lakers Shaq, bro. Like, I try to remember him prime. And so, like, I remember Tyson, like, coming out, like, to Tupac, just killing motherfuckers. Like, that's what I want to remember. I don't want to remember him losing to, a YouTube kid, essentially. Or even just a young boxer in his 20s. Like, it's wild to think, man. You're going to be 57. Like, retirement age is like 60, dude. Like, it's for like a normal factory worker. It's crazy he's doing it.
And the other piece of it too is, and we've heard this for generations now, the last thing to go is the power. And you see these clips, again, these clips online in short 5 to 7 second bursts. Like, in short 5 to 7 second bursts, you and I can look like world-class athletes.
Yeah.
And so can he. But then, as length and time comes in, you start to see that inability to sustain it. But he still has just remarkable movement and power. And even at 57, like, Jake Paul will never have felt what he's going to feel in the ring for however long Tyson can sustain it, because, there's a difference you see in the other piece of this too, man, is like Tyson has been doing this since he was 12. And you and I both know the difference between guys that just pick something up later in life as an adult versus they've been doing it since kids. Like Floyd Mayweather, he's been doing it since he was a kid. I only saw one time in Floyd Mayweather's career where he got hit. And it was against Shane Mosley, and Shane got him. Like Mayweather had to but Mayweather knew exactly what to do to get through the round. He changed his strategy between rounds, moved to a guard where basically like Shane got him on the right side of his chin, and the rest of the fight, Mayweather was fighting like this. And Shane never got close. But he had to wrap up. Like, and not that Shane didn't fight since Shane was he comes from a fighting family, but it's different. And I think Jake Paul is going to find out pretty quick that, oh wow, this guy's 57, but like he's going to get flashes of what we all saw in the 80s. It's just not going to last very long.
And it's crazy too, and it's free on Netflix. No money.
So let's talk about that. Like, did you ever think we'd get to a point where something that you could like that was people would have to pay $100 or $200 for is going to be free? Yeah. Look, you have to pay to get a membership, right? But this is now where we are. There's a variety of factors, right? No matter what the reports say or articles that come out about how great the economy is doing, everyone knows this economy is a house of cards based on consumer confidence, and consumers have zero confidence. You tell me, am I wrong based on everything I see and hear? So you have to pivot and shift, but the thing at the same time, there's never more content. People can't get enough content. There's been a big shift in how much people are willing to invest in making new content because of that, and as a result, you've seen these big cinematic, hundreds of million blockbusters basically die in favor of, using CGI and AI and also going the route of just like, let's just make kind of a TV style movie, because it's just not worth investing in something people aren't willing to pay for. People aren't going to theaters. Like we're at a point now where basically in the next 3 to 5 years, if there is a theater in your area, like it's around for a special reason, right? Like it has a strip club. You can just go, you get 2 for 1. Surf and turf, strip club, and a theater is what it's going to take to get people to go out to a theater, because they opened that Pandora's box during the pandemic when people were like, oh, you know what? Like I'm looking over at my couch where I watch my movies. I have that sex ramp from college that I use to elevate my legs to drain the arthritis. I've got my Normatex. I have unlimited beverage and food options. I don't have to worry about someone coming in and doing something crazy in the theater because we live in that age now.
Yeah.
Why would I leave? Why would I leave the house?
Yeah, I went to Oppenheimer. I think that's like the only movie I've seen the last like probably couple years.
That's the last one I went to. We did Barbie and then Oppenheimer. And actually it was after Oppenheimer where I was like, because that movie had to be broken down into 3 parts. In my opinion, like you need some breaks. Like after the first hour, I just want to, get up, walk around a little bit, think about it. It's so dense and it's nonstop, the pace of it. And I was like, yeah, this doesn't make sense for me to go to the theater anymore because I'm just going to be too stiff when I get home. And I'm not really fully enjoying this because this is designed to be processed. And in 1 3-hour burst, like you feel like you are in a nuclear explosion. I know that was the intended effect from the director, who I'm a big fan of. We're both fans of Nolan. But it just gets to the bigger picture. Just like people have never wanted more content than ever. At the same time, they have never been less willing to pay for it. And it just has created a really unique spot for content creators, for events, for entertainment and sports in general.
No, it's the one thing, like in our like mastermind group, I talk about it a lot and people ask me like, hey, what do you think is going to go on and insert time frame? And I'm like, I don't know, dude, because I've never seen anything. The world, not to be too grumpy old men here, but the world is a shit show. Financially, it is a dumpster fire, whether people want to believe that or not. Like you can look at the numbers and I don't even know how half the shit is going on that's going on right now, just because most people have to be completely broke as shit. But 2, just like to look at the technology and how fast it moves, like it's exponential growth. It's not just like what it was. Oh, hey, 2 years ago it was this. Now the next 2 years it'll be that. I'm like, no, the next 2 years is like 10 years or 20 years. Like it's that much faster. So I'm like, I don't know what people will want to do. Like, I don't know what people are looking at. Like, and when I look at I don't even at this point, like, just look at social alone is like so overwhelming to look at anything. I try not to even like, get the fun little basketball clips that I get, but I'm like, they'll suck me in once in a while and I'll hear Baron Davis talk about when John Stockton busted his ass for the first time. Like, those things are fun for me to watch. But other than that, I'm like, it's so much content, it's so much video, it's every platform, it's all the time. And it just seems like there's way too much to even like remotely use in a logical way. Like, can you listen to 10 different podcasts? Like, can you follow 250 Instagram accounts? And now it's like, because back in the day, like, you would watch your feed, and like when your friends ran out, your feed was done. When Joey's getting a taco and Susie's at the beach, like, and when that's over, it's over. Now it's just an endless scroll of like shit that's people and things you don't even know and have no connection to. They're feeding you, and I just feel like it's a really weird I'd love to see people's screen times. Like, if you could walk around and see, like, when people walk around, like, a number, like 8 hours and 7 minutes today, and you would just be like mortified, like, but by what's going on. So, not to get off topic, but yeah, with the streaming stuff and how much shit is out there, I don't know where any of it goes, business wise or content wise. I know I definitely didn't see like a pay-per-view event I think most people would pay for be completely for free on the biggest platform there is.
I mean, the other piece of it too is, I'm sure you've seen this ad if you've been watching NBA playoffs, this new Google phone where basically you see this guy who can barely jump. He gets off the floor about as high as Jokic does, but then because of the new technology on the phone, he can take himself and level himself up to look like he jumped 10 feet. And again, like, great, I've got no problem with tech. But what I'm saying is, we are now also in a situation where it's impossible. I mean, people can tell this has been altered, but the thing is, in a mass scale, when the feeds, like you said, it's like Pac-Man, bro. No matter where you go, it's just nonstop content pumping your way, and it is difficult to decipher what's real, what isn't. That also changes things in the sense that, from a business standpoint, when you can't decipher what is real, what isn't, and in our space, I've already seen it. Like, where now there's like people are making content where it's just like this avatar, like this muscle avatar, like a Da Vinci on steroids, doing movements, and then his muscles light up to show which body part is being worked.
Yeah.
You don't need guys like us anymore doing the movements. Just use this fake avatar creation. And I don't think, and this is what I'll mention because as a pivot point, I saw Seinfeld talk about recently how the movie, like the film business as we know it, it's dead. And he was wondering why people are taking it so seriously, because like, this is pointless, guys. Like, this is dead. It's all fake. None of it matters. This is not nearly what it used to be. But for him, he's like, but there's always stand-up. Because, that's when you, as in his space, comedy, the true craftsmen or craftspeople, whatever you want to say, you can't fake it in stand-up, right? Like, like on social media and with all like post-production and editing and AI and CGI, you can fake a lot. But when you go with a mic on stage in front of a bunch of people, you're either funny or you're not. I guess the example for us would be like, hey, train these 20 people. And you and we did that. You still do it. We'd be well equipped to handle that. But a lot of people online likely, I mean, they would make an attempt, but it would likely be, having a 50-year-old postmenopausal woman who's 50 pounds overweight doing tuck jumps. And that won't work out too well. And she'd be peeing herself within the first minute. So, that's what I was telling my wife. It's like, how can we, at the speed and rate of content delivery, keep up with what is and isn't real? And then what effect is that going to have on our brains subconsciously long-term? Where you see an actual feat that is amazing and you don't appreciate it because of all of the altered, enhanced, on steroid content that's being just pumped. And you mentioned McGregor earlier. That dude went on at least 2 cycles or that movie Roadhouse. I thought he was great in it, by the way. I saw some people saying he ruined the movie. I thought he was excellent. That guy is the ultimate heel. He's even better than Jake Paul.
Oh, dude, he's what do people think he was going to be? Like Daniel Day-Lewis? Like they thought he was going to be Matthew McConaughey in True Detective season 1. Like just give this life. Like, that's not what Connor is. Connor played Connor.
What could he have done better?
Like that's what he did. He knew the assignment. Like he understood the assignment, and that's what he did. Like, but yeah, he was, super. I mean, again, he's in the recovery pool, so he was super juiced up for sure. Yeah.
So we'll kind of parry the whole boxing conversation to, I'm obviously very excited. My Ultimate Boxing Trainer is now available on the Jeremy Scott Fitness app, along with your 1,000 plus other workouts and programs. Links for that will be in the show notes as well. That has been up until this point content exclusively available on my app or on YouTube with ads, but you can get it ad-free at the JSF app. So we wanted to also, introduce boxing to your audience. I'll kind of hand it over to you here to kind of, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to get my content on your platform. It means a lot. It's an honor, and I hope they really enjoy it. So what questions do you have for me in regards to helping your people best use that content?
Yeah, I mean, like for one, like I wasn't going to do it, so like it's not something I can do, and it's so like detailed in like every piece of it. So we have it in there. It's probably been in the app for I don't know, like 3 weeks at this point, and people do it. I built it into some of the weekly workouts too, just to kind of spoon feed to people, but obviously it lives in there. I guess for somebody like in the outside, like, because I'll share it on Instagram and I'll throw it out places, and people like, well, Jeremy, I'm not a boxer. I don't want to be one. I don't have like all this equipment. And I'm like, it's not what it is. Like I've probably watched 80% of it. And a lot of it is not even like boxing. I don't know if that's the wrong way to put it, but there's a lot of pieces that even go into getting you ready to just go through the footwork. If you want to talk through like kind of how you set up the program, because essentially I have basically the 10 video series plus this heavy bag from hell workout capped off at the very, very end.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing, and this is what's so difficult. This is what's difficult about it, right? And by the way, this is with anything that you want to do in life. When there are learning curves, it means that the beginning sucks. You oftentimes don't want to do a lot of the stuff involved with it, but there is this huge payoff moment at the end, which not only is this huge reward for you physically, mentally, spiritually, but it's now something you can do for the rest of your life and build upon. So the stark contrast to boxing for cardio is a Peloton bike that you pay $2,000 for and you sit on. Look, I know you're a big Airdyne guy, and that obviously has the advantages of having the arms too. And I think it absolutely has its purpose for some people, for most people. But at the end of the day too, the last thing I want to have someone do who's sitting all day long is get their cardio in or their workout in sitting. And by the way, you guys rarely do exclusive assault bike workouts. It tends to be finishers or starters or part of like a medley. I see your content, and because to just do an Airdyne only workout, unless it's just like the 1 minute sprint test, it sucks. It's boring, and that's the thing about it. Like with boxing, as it's being skill based, it's on your feet. It involves, in my opinion, one of the most important aspects of anti-aging, which is pivoting feet and rotating hips. This is like, if you've ever played sport, it's the foundation of everything, right? The ability to pivot and rotate your hips, change direction. And then also we're talking about low impact, fast twitch fiber training. Every year after 30, those are the fibers we lose. The speed, the power, the reaction speed. And to take that to the next level here is just a personal thing. I've had arthritis in both knees since I was 19 years old. My left knee now is at a point where the arthritis has become exponential, and it's just there's daily inflammation in there, and that's just where I'm at. I'm probably going to have to get it replaced, but I can still push myself to the limit with the heavy bag, the sled, and obviously the pool has been great as well. Weighted walking. So again, like it's something I can still do with my condition. You know, and that's huge. You know, that's something you can't overlook. From the standpoint of just aesthetics, if I hit the heavy bag once or twice a week, I can have a physique at this age of 41 and a half that is in the 99.9 percentile of the world. And it really does. It puts finishing touches on your trunk. It really does. The angles that you create with not just the straight punches, the hooks, going head, body, all of that trunk rotation, the hip rotation, in terms of what it can do for your heart rate. And by the way, the heavy bag work, which you hope to get to at some point, because the way I look at shadow boxing, it's your body weight work. And by the way, that's where it all starts, because that's the muscle memory. That's what gets your nervous system on autopilot with the basic punches and footwork, which we'll talk about. And the heavy bag is when you start adding weights to it, right? Like if you've ever done a heavy bag workout before and you do it, the next day it feels like you did like heavy barbell work or weighted dips and pull-ups. It creates that level of muscle damage with the cardio, with the fact that it's a full body workout. And again, it's easy on your lower body joints. And I can't overemphasize that enough as like an aging athlete. Like the road work is out. That's the benefit of the sled, is I can tap into some of that stuff without all the eccentric stress and the high impact. So there's that piece of it too. And again, there is this gap. Yeah, I can't just put you on a bike like or I can't just put you in that chair like Neo and just give you kung fu. Okay, like I wish we were there. But by the way, like, would you really want that? I know a lot of people would say, yes, sure. I'd love the ability to just do kung fu, but like it will not have you will not have a connection to it. Just like your connection with basketball, right? By the way, very similar in nature to boxing, and why a lot of NBA players train boxing on the off season, because of the similar natures of hand-eye coordination, footwork. Like boxing, you mentioned like the footwork. If you don't get the footwork right, you can't properly balance yourself to throw and land punches or make continuous punches. And you got to go to the shoot, pass, dribble phase with this type of skill. And can't get around it. And that's the earlier parts of the workouts. You know, there's 10 of these workouts, not including the heavy bag workout from hell, which, you know, we're talking 1,000 plus calories in an hour, easy on that heavy bag workout. But all these other workouts you can do with just your body weight, or if you want to hold light pair of 1 to 2 pound hand weights or a band to get some intensity, you can do that as well. But at the end of the day, there are 6 basic punches, and there's, you know, 3 basic ways to move. The 6 punches, you've got your 1 is your jab, 2 is your overhand right or cross, the 3, and that goes from a straight arm punch to a bent arm, 90-degree angle lead hook. 4 is the rear hook. And the only difference between the hook and the uppercut is the positioning. It's the same arm position. So a big part of that, like, this is what I do. Like when I went to go learn boxing from a pro who is, you know, he's got one of the best leading fitness education on YouTube. It wasn't as helpful as it was for me to just teach it to myself, because, you know, when you go work with an Olympic boxer, they're so far beyond like he can't even remember the beginning when he learned how to box when he was 11. But so he's showing me things and I'm like, bro, like I didn't even know what is this? Like we're skipping some key steps here. So we really start just focusing at slower speeds, just placing the punches. And it does help, like, to have a mirror so you can see how it looks. And if you look at your brain like a camera, all your brain's trying to do in the early stages with boxing or any new skill, it's taking pictures. And once you take those pictures at slow speeds with good form, it's like a dimmer switch. We just ramp up the speed and intensity, and then we add complexity to the skills. From a footwork standpoint, you basically are in a staggered shuffle, right? So a classic shuffle, you're square on. The difference with boxing is we have to create the stagger so that there's a lead arm and a trail arm. And the lead arm is basically this is the arm that's going to be kind of setting the distance. It's going to be the one you use to more quickly attack because it's closest to the opponent. And your trail arm will tend to be one that you can generate more power off of when it comes to the straights, right? The overhand right. The Jake Paul punch that, unfortunately, I feel if it comes down the pipe and hits Mike Tyson, it might be nap time. The Deontay Wilder punch, right, coming straight down the pipe. You much like with basketball, when you're shuffling, you can't let these feet come too close together, and if you let them cross, it can be problematic, right? Because you lose your balance, stability, you can't react, you'll fall. So it's about initially creating the muscle memory of constantly keeping the feet spaced properly, where there's a line between the feet. For the YouTube people, I'm showing it right now, where you've got a line between your feet, and these feet are never coming too close together, so you have the ability to always punch and move and react. So we go through the linear footwork, the lateral footwork, then we basically get into we learn the basic punches, one punch at a time, right? You can't, like, people want to go right to a body weight circuit, but there's actually a lot of value in saying, okay, I'm going to work on the push-up today, the squat tomorrow, the hanger pull-up tomorrow, and then maybe at the end of the week, I'll put these together in a circuit because I've downloaded each skill, now I'm putting them together. This is especially important if you've never boxed before in your life, because again, what boxing will do, and this is what it did to me, it will expose every one of your weaknesses. In particular, breathing, coordination. Like if you can't dance, boxing's going to be a little bit tough for you early on. And even if you can dance, it's a new skill. But it's basically like, what is boxing? It's dance fighting. What's all combat sports or martial arts? It's a artistic interpretation of how to do combat with styles and poses and unique approaches, right? So it actually has a dance component to it, but you're not going to get most over 40 guys from the Midwest to dance. But if you can get into box and do good boxing footwork, well, they're getting what they need anyway. Because as you see, as the footwork progresses and stuff like that, where you're punching and moving. So what I'm trying to say is there are so many layers to this. It's progressive. It's not like a treadmill. It's not like a bike where you get on it. And I even saw, like, I don't know if you've seen these ads. There was a new stationary bike that can lean this way. And this activates your obliques 35% more to get shredded at home. And it's like, okay, so I'll give you that. Now bikes can lean this way and that way. But when you start putting these combinations together, bro, like when you can put together a good 5 or 6 punch combination, it feels like it's a rush. And you can hear the pop on the bag. And by the way, is any physical fitness program complete without self-defense? This used to be baked into what we did. Like, you got to learn how to use your hands. Like someone comes into this house, I'm not saying I'm going to win every fight, but this is not going to be a passive altercation. All right. I train for this. I train for these opportunities to protect my family, protect myself. And then I think the other piece that has to be discussed as well, they use boxing for patients with Parkinson's. It literally helps reconnect and reverse some of the brain damage that comes with that particular disorder, the shaking, the tripping. When I would go and get my initial lessons, there was a group of people with Parkinson's getting a class, and this was a big part of what they do every week as their therapy. So in this program, by the way, there's like a video game vibe where I think about month 3 or 4, where you do reaction drills. So each punch has a number. I just went through, like the 1 is the jab, the 2 is the cross, etc. And then just to be able to call out and react when I say 1, you got to jab quick, 2, cross quick. And then when you talk about combinations, 1, 2, 3. So you're reacting in real time and you're building reaction speed. And this is, by the way, this is what leads to injuries. Someone's out walking their dog and their dog reacts to another aggressive dog or a sound or a car, and they fall and break a hip because their body has not been trained recently to react to stimuli. So, I threw a lot at you. What specifically would you want me to flesh out more? Like, and by the way, like, I'm telling you right now, bro, like if you got just the basic proficiency skills and adding the heavy bag to your arsenal, it would be, I'm telling you right now, it is just like the sled for me. It's when I am in a tight corner, I know I can set the countdown clock for 20 minutes and I can just start hitting the heavy bag, and I always come out better on the other end. No warm-up required. I mean, it's full body. I think you'd love it. I really do.
Well, I mean, I think with the program, like when you look at it too, for people who maybe are like, well, Jeremy, I already do this and I do this. Again, I'm not against, like, if you want to ride a fucking Peloton, go crazy. But if you sit in, flexion all day, to sit in more flexion and never be in hip extension, I don't think that's going to do anybody any good. I don't think that. I think if you realize like how tight your quads and your hip flexors and TFL and psoas and everything becomes by just doing the same repetitive shit over and over and over again, you wouldn't do it. And usually you pay the price at some point. But the program, like, even if you don't want to, hey, I don't want to be a world-class boxer, you can just sprinkle this in like a day a week. And to me, I'm like, even if you're like, well, if you have no interest in like ever boxing or ever like even punching someone, which you may have to at some point in your life, just the mobility piece alone and just the stability of how you move and the dynamic way that you're moving is something that you don't do every day. I always tell people, I'm like, you walk forward all day. You rarely ever walk backwards. Rarely do you ever laterally shuffle. Most people never do lateral lunges. Most people never do skater hops. Most people never even step up laterally. Like, there's no movement whatsoever other than just forward, sit down, and we might turn slightly. But again, it's not like you're doing fucking spin moves in the grocery store, unless you're like a psychopath. So I think for most people, just knowing you could do it one day a week over the course of like 10 weeks and just cycling it through that way, or if it was twice a week or whatever, I think this replacing, even if to me, honestly, for most people, if you don't have some dedicated tissue work and mobility routine, I think if you're a normal, just stiff, tight person who hits the gym a couple days a week, throwing this in once a week would kind of check a lot of those boxes right off the bat. And it's probably way more fun than the forced mobility shit you would have to do.
So I'm glad you mentioned that, because especially the earlier workouts, I would approach this as off-day mobility cardio. And by the way, we do heavy work on hip rotation, because if and this is part of the thing too, like, how can you love boxing or MMA or combat sports and not know at least like how to do the basics of it? Because, by the way, when you do you think that you and I would enjoy the NBA as much as we did if we didn't grow up playing basketball?
No.
And by the way, as now we can actually watch and truly appreciate what we see, because we're like, wow. And you can still dunk, but like, my dunks don't look like Anthony Edwards' dunks, right? Like, or you see an incredible shot that like a casual person won't even. I've been in rooms where like someone does something amazing and they don't even respond, because they have no concept about like the artistry involved in a fadeaway or a step back three. But what I'm trying to say is, you will appreciate your viewing experience as a fan way more when you learn the basics of what you're watching. It's just that's kind of baked into it too. But these were designed to be like the ideal off-day, like, cardio, mobility, active recovery workouts, and especially in the earlier stages when things are done at a slower, more methodical pace, more about stability and mobility, because you've got to get the hips open enough to create the internal external rotation, so you're not shoulder punching. Because that's not only will you not turn any power and look like an ape out there, but you're going to be then prone to, especially if you use a heavy bag, you're going to hurt your shoulders. And you watch all these top fighters. There's only one guy that I can think of that didn't punch with his legs, and that's George Foreman, who, by the way, I saw him working the heavy bag the other day at 74. And this guy, like, the bag still, the whole room shakes still. Hardest puncher ever. I think the only guy that could have stopped a prime Mike Tyson was George Foreman, just because of his size, and he punched even harder than Mike Tyson. He didn't have as much power, but he has huge hands, bro. And like, you can just see like these punches, just, it's almost like he was using like only 6-ounce gloves when he'd throw a punch. The way they impacted people, like they were just like, remember the video game? It's like the damage from a George Foreman punch would take your meter way down fast. But and this is the part that you mentioned, overuse injuries. This is the biggest mistake if you learn how to box. Don't allow them to tell you, no, we're only going to work in one stance because we want you to perfect this stance. You do that, and immediately you will notice, like for example, if you only do if you're right-handed, you only go orthodox, you are going to develop a hip flexor and lower back QL problem on the right side, guaranteed. And that's the beauty of this too. The way we teach it, you'll end up as good in southpaw as you are in the orthodox stance. Orthodox meaning traditional right hand, left shoulder forward. Southpaw, just think Rocky. Just think Rocky. And when I started, your weak side, right? So I'm right-handed. I'm in southpaw. What you're going to be missing immediately is rotation on this lead hip. So you start to throw like you can just see, like when I slip, so someone's punching and I slip it, get ready to throw a hook. When I go to the other side, it isn't as naturally. I'm a little bit stiffer on that rotation. So we help you with that so that, again, you can punch from both stances, which, by the way, that was one of Mike Tyson's signatures. He would, did I send you this video? I did, yeah. It's a video where Tyson goes from orthodox to southpaw, back to orthodox, and then he finishes in southpaw before he knocks someone out who was bigger reach. But again, his footwork and his complete skill set of being able to shift between stances was the difference, beyond the fact that you're going to avoid overuse injuries from training boxing, but also you can fix a hip or a low back problem that is currently there that bothers you from other activities by training both, right? Because again, we're not just straight punching, it's the hooks and it's, as they call them, the rounds that opens up hip and spinal rotation. And by the way, like I've even gotten into the shoulder benefits. What is the serratus anterior called? The muscle that the Rocky IV muscle, threaded right here by the ribs. What's that called? The nickname for it.
I don't know.
It's called, the serratus is called the puncher's muscle.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, no, it's called the puncher's muscle because it is specifically and exceptionally developed in boxers. Because what is a punch? A proper punch, one that isn't stiff, that goes all the way, extends, it involves scapular protraction. So your scapular mobility will go off the charts. And, so, which is very important for shoulder health performance. So I can't say enough about it. And again, I think where people make a mistake with it, if it's the only thing you're going to do, you're probably more likely to get bored with it. I would look at it as something you add in, and then as your competency builds, and just like with any basic workout, you might be bored doing an entry-level plank circuit, right? Basic plank, side plank, bridge, hollow body hold. It's not super exciting, but if we don't do those right, how can we add in the plank and reach and twist, or the alternating arm leg front plank, or the hollow body rocks and rolls? Like all the fun stuff comes off of the foundation, and then it does get really, really fun. People that hate it in the beginning, this is now the most requested workouts we get at thedailybj.com. They can't get enough of it, especially when they add the heavy bag into the equation, because this is maybe the most important part, man. The mental health, the stress relief of just, like, I don't know who you need to visualize that bag to be at the end of the day, but it's a much healthier release of all the bad demons or juju you have in your body from stress at work, stress in life. And, it doesn't punch you back. That's another piece of it too. You get all the benefits of boxing without the brain damage.
No, and I think for people, obviously, you'll start and you realize, like, hey, you suck for sure. Your footwork is probably not great. It's a lot to learn. I go, but it's a new skill too. And for people, just the general public who sit majority of the day and we don't move enough, like that's my whole thing is just moving around. Like just move your body around and not always in the same constant, I guess, plane of motion. Like we're always doing the same shit. So I go, so to unglue tight hips, which typically means you have a tight, stiff low back, and to get your shoulders moving and get your, your entire spine, but your thoracic spine moving too through space, you just will feel better, I think. And it's just a more fun way to do essentially that base level mobility work. Like I have people in the app already who are like, oh man, I need to work on they don't know what to call it, but essentially shin boxes, because they can't do a shin box. Even they struggle with even like a baseball bat getting up, which just lets you know where people are at. Yet people want to jump into these like super, I guess crazy advanced workouts, and they don't even have the basic mobility to get into the postures to do the exercises in the first place. So it fixes a lot of things that people have probably never fixed, but just in a more detailed kind of fun way. If you can frame it that way in your brain, and you're learning something that's completely new, and you will feel better, and you'll have increased mobility, increased range of motion, which typically means, depending on how you train, more hypertrophy, you'll just look better, move better, feel better. But you have to build it from the beginning, and this is more fun than just, again, I'll set a clock and do mobility for 60 minutes. I don't give a shit because I'll work through all the stuff. I go, but that's me. A normal person has zero chance of doing that. So if you can kill two birds with one stone, this is what I see this is kind of perfect for.
And by the way, I think a lot of times people confuse the word boredom for their general lack of focus, because there's no shortage of people that go running for an hour, but some of those people would say, oh, this is too boring for me. This 20-minute workout where it changes literally, it's a new drill every minute or two, is boring. No, what it means is you like to run for an hour because it requires no focus. By the way, mindless workouts are fine. The beauty of, though, once this becomes a skill, is it can end up becoming mindless for you. Sometimes I'll do a dedicated workout where every round I'm changing it, like in the heavy day workout from hell. And then sometimes I just go out there and I freestyle, and I don't know what I'm going to do. But because of all these combinations and movements and are already in there, it can unlock, just like anything. Freestyle becomes where you take this to a whole new level. Where, by the way, like, this is all of it. Jeremy and I share all the stuff we do because it's a business. It's how we make a living, all that stuff. But we both know that ultimately the only way this will ever be something that you really love, that becomes part of your DNA, if what we do is we empower you enough to create ownership in your fitness, where you start to experiment and make your own shit too. We're not saying you end up doing all your stuff on your own, because, again, I think the biggest value that you and I provide is we take the time and effort to put stuff together for you. Not that you necessarily can't do it. I have guys and gals who follow. They can make their own workouts. They've been doing it long enough, but they're maybe not as skilled, or they can't do it as fast, or they're too busy to find the time because of all their extra commitments. They don't do this for a living. But that's what you hope to get to with any skill, right? It starts structured and then eventually becomes so good for you that you can end up kind of doing your own thing and having fun, like a dance, like going out and shooting hoops and not knowing what's going to happen for an hour. And by the way, I gave you the heavy day workout from hell, which maybe I'll wait till the end, because if people want to jump ahead and go to the hardest options, sometimes that's good too, because if you struggle with it, just know it's because, okay, I've made a choice. I'm not going to develop any foundation here, but you'll still get a great workout. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want, sometimes structure gets in the way of progress, because if it's too slow and too methodical. By the way, some people need to go through it that way. Someone who maybe is more athletic, better teaching themselves or picking up new movements, that workout isn't of itself progressive. It starts with the basics, and by round 15, you're throwing a 6-punch combination with lateral movement. So it gets pretty advanced by the end, and maybe you can only get 3 of the first 5 rounds. So the last thing I'll say to that too is, I know a lot of your people, they golf, they play tennis, maybe they're in a softball league, all rotational. Pickleball, that's the big one out here in the desert. What those are rotational sports that boxing will make you better at. You're going to develop mobility through the hip and thoracic spine that'll translate into, you still have to hit the ball. But if you're missing that, especially on the other side, because people only golf one way. I don't want to get into how bad that is for you from that standpoint, but at least the boxing side of it, training both sides and both patterns, like if you think about it, you only throw a punch as an orthodox, you're only driving hip rotation one way. So the other side is getting completely neglected. The other shoulder, by the way, gets stiff. So, that's going to cause pain when you squat. That's going to cause pain anytime you twist, pivot, rotate, do athletic stuff. So those things are missing big time in those aforementioned more popular, more accepted sports. But still, those all require skill. I guess the one thing about boxing is you can't really it's not as social, right? Golf, you go out with some buddies, you get hammered, you're in a golf cart. It's a fun thing. You're out in nature. Tennis, there's doubles, you get 4 people involved. It's a social thing. But maybe you use this as an opportunity to get together and do a boxing class, or, you get, I don't know. It isn't as naturally social. That's the thing about fighting. It's a very individual thing. It's you and yourself, or your sparring partner and training process. And it's the person you go across in the ring. In this case, we're talking for general fitness. There is a solo element to it that, there's no built-in social that isn't necessarily there.
No, but it's a blueprint to follow. So it allows you to essentially not be good in front of people for a long period of time if you choose to be. And it just to fix the imbalances and just get people moving in a way that they don't move and acquiring a new skill, because most people don't have the time for like discovery, like in the gym, to just create things like in the way that like we do. Like, again, like I do a lot of brainless stuff, like, but I can, even when I say that, like I can go in there and I can play with things. Like today I'll go in, because like Wednesdays I don't get as many steps in typically as the other days because I'm just walking around nonstop. And I'm like, I'll go in today and do mobility, and I'll just do some versions of sled pushing and pulling and carries. And that's pretty much it. And it might be the same sled push and pull the entire time, but probably not. And the same thing with the carries. It might be farmers, it might be suitcase, it might be rack carries, it might just be, who knows, I might just make up shit. I'll grab, a sandbag instead of a dumbbell, or I'll grab a kettlebell and I'll hold it this way. Like I'll just play around with it because like I have the time to do it, where a normal person really doesn't do that. And they won't think of things in this kind of dynamic frame of mind. And so this program essentially does that a whole hell of a lot easier. And that's the last thing I'll say too, is just for people, just moving around and just doing something like consistently, like you'll be fine. I just think people, that's why our programs exist. So you do have a plug and play, but you don't have to be married to it. You can do pieces of it if you like, and you can marry pieces together. I just think the consistency of doing stuff that's not always the exact same forever, like it has some variance to it, is the key for most people. It keeps you excited to do it, but it keeps you, just doing it, over the long term.
Yeah, man. Like, and by the way, maybe you just learned a heavy day workout from hell, and that's just one workout you learn, and that becomes a fallback workout. By the way, that workout is great before a cheat meal, Thanksgiving meal, because again, it will absolutely deplete your muscle glycogen. And just one of my go-to, like for that, one of my favorite workouts here is I'll do 20 minutes heavy bag, 20 minutes sled, 20 minutes pool. So it doesn't have to be the only thing you do. And again, they're all follow along. They're progressive. You can take individual drills and use them to make your own circuit. One of my favorite heavy bag routines is I hit the bag, I do a push-up variation, and I go like that for 20 minutes. And it's one of the best upper body workouts of your life, bro. Like the chest pump you get towards the end of that, like hitting the bag with combinations, then hitting like 10 perfect push-ups. And you could be the same push-up, or you could switch the push-up up from round to round. It's just fun. Like and you're getting such a good blend of strength and conditioning. And it makes you feel like a man. For the men listening in this low testosterone, no testosterone epidemic, let's get some blood to that dick. Let's get some blood to that dick.
What before we go, what is your training like? What does it look like now? Like on most weeks, like obviously the sled work and those things, but what is the kind of it? Does it change week to week, or do you kind of have like an outline you play with right now?
So my base right now, the base of what I do as, trying to get as it being shred season, there's four four non-negotiables. I guess five. Number one is every hour I'll do at least a minute of mobility. Sometimes it'll be strength. And it's typically calisthenic stuff like, pull up, dip, deep squat, stuff like that. That's just kind of built into what I do now. I know you're a big fan of something similar. Number two, it's a daily weighted walk, though what I've been doing lately, I kind of mix it up. Obviously I can walk in my neighborhood with the 20-pound ruck. But then also I've been going to this fitness park we have. I set the clock for an hour. It's got a nice little hill too. So I'll do some like incline, decline, agility or mobility drills. Walking up a hill backwards is essentially backward sled dragging without the need for load. And they have a gymnastics calisthenics area too. So I can hang, go to the hill. So basically it's just kind of a fun way for me to I move for an hour. I bounce between the fitness park, which is adult only, by the way. There's literally a sign that says you have to be 14 to step on this area. There's 3 children playgrounds right there. But the moment Uncle Baby Biscuits comes over to here, 10 kids come and they mimic my movements. I hate it. There's a reason I don't have kids, people, okay? And then the parents come over, they're filming, and I'm like, there's a sign right there. Whatever. What am I going to do? Adults need their playground too, okay? So that's been kind of fun too. But then the 3 routines that I lean on the most, it's the heavy bag, it's the sled, which we both have the same one now, the Tank MX, and then my pull work. Because again, I've been trying to come up with a plan what I'm going to do with my left knee, but all that stuff allows me to maintain my muscle mass and really push my conditioning to a whole new level without triggering my knee arthritis. So yeah, that's the 5. And then like what you'll notice is there aren't really training sessions anymore. I'd like to get back to that maybe at some point, but this is just where I'm at right now with how much work I have to do. And I've also done a lot of training in my life. So I'm being able to just move and have fun with it is all. You go through those seasons, right? I know you've had your personal struggles over the last year, which most likely means that you're probably not up for, a highly structured pen to paper workout, right? That's why you do a lot of sled. That's why you do a lot of weighted walking. That's why you just fuck around and get a triple double with your fitness because, you don't need to do that anymore or all the time based on how much experience you have.
Well, that's like you text me that the one day you're like, you don't got to be Jordan from the first 3-peat. You can be Jordan in the second 3-peat, just hitting fadeaways from the block, letting it compound over time, which very rare anybody would message that. That's why we're friends.
Different body requires a different approach. And
but no,
if you're 40, you're no longer 30. If you're 30, you're no longer 20.
People will say like, oh, it's not old and it's not this and that. I'm like, I understand that in the context of like, you're not 80, but I'm like, if you live to be 80, bro, that's half your life and it's your prime athletic life. So as I sit here and just like massage my right forearm because I got this almost like tennis elbow because I moved something into my truck this morning and I'm like, why is this there? Like that shit was never there before. And it's stuff like if I get up in the morning and I do all the work, right? But it's like I'll get up and like let me grab something from my dryer as I squat down. I'm like, oh, my knees are tight. Like that's the word I use. They feel tight or like stiff. And it's like, well, you were just sitting in this fetal position for the last like 7 hours or whatever, sleeping. Like that never used to be a thing. And I never used to think like if I take off the ground, will something come unattached that's supposed to be attached? Like those are real things I think about now. So like everything is like there's a risk reward. There's an opportunity cost to kind of everything. So yeah, even if it's like a day where like I'll always move around, even on like the shittiest days where I'm tired or whatever the fuck it may be. But yeah, sometimes it's like I don't want to just go through 6 different, exercises for X amount of sets of reps, focusing on like 90 seconds to, 2 minutes in between, like for a maximum hypertrophy. Like, yeah, some days that's what I do. But then there's some days where I'm like, fuck, man, mentally, I just don't want to do that today. And like, do you need to? I guess that's the big thing when people think of training. Like, a lot of people want to beat the shit out of themselves, and there's a time and place for all that stuff. I go, but it can't be every day, and it can't be every season of life, because I'm like, your joints really only have so much life in them, and there is connective tissue all around them. And like, I say this a lot now, and I sound like this super old person, but the things that used to just go away don't go away. They tend to hang out unless you fix them, and sometimes they're not even like, they're not really fixable.
Yeah, man. Like, look, here's the thing about it too. Using the whole, we talked a lot about fighting. We all have a fighting weight, and what that means is it's your most natural body weight. It's one that like you can stick to and fall into, and just as long as you tend to do most of what you typically will do, it is what it is. It doesn't require a lot of effort to stay there. Like for me to be 275 when I played college football, that took a lot of effort to stay there. That took 6 to 8 meals a day. It took a lot of heavy lifting. It took being, in my late teens, early 20s. Like, it was that perfect mix of things. So there's I'm not eating 6 to 8 times today in this economy. Are you kidding me? The only reason that worked is that we had a cafeteria food. I could take stuff home, unlimited food. But with boxing, like when I came in to do the boxing at like 225, 230, maybe even 235 at that point, bro, I was so stiff. I couldn't even finish a round without getting gassed. And all that stiffness from all that weightlifting, like, it really came to a head. I went to the doctor because our medical system is so fucked. It took me 2 months to get the appointment to get an x-ray. So like, I need to start like the process of what I'm going to do about my knee. So I finally got the x-ray, and now I've got to wait to get a schedule to get the MRI, to then end up getting the referral to be able to go see an orthopedic doctor. So, that's where we're at with the medical system. And obviously I probably don't have very good health insurance, but, or we have a cheap plan, right? Because we're whatever it is. But I was 202. Like, and this has been a deliberate thing for me to just get myself to the lightest possible weight where I feel good. I'm still strong. Because, it's a long-term strategy for my arthritic knees. An extra 20 pounds on these knees is going to lead to a really poor quality of life for me as someone who loves to move and be active. So boxing has truly allowed me to find my fighting weight. And this is a natural thing too. Like, in my 20s, I was a heavyweight. Now in my early 40s, I'm like a light heavyweight. And that's the right shift. That's a natural shift to happen to the male body, in my opinion, for longevity. Like, again, like, if I wanted to be a juice man, then it would not be the right approach. But I'm not trying to make it any harder on my arthritic knees. And I think hitting your fighting weight, you'll know exactly what it is. You just kind of fall into it. And it's just a weight that you can sustain at any age without much effort, where it maximizes all the things, right? You're lean, you're athletic, you're muscular enough, and you feel good, and you actually can do a lot of things without pain.
Yeah, it's like your body naturally wants to be there, and most people fight it one way or another. If I generalize, women tend to want to be in a lighter weight class for whatever reason, and dudes want to be in a heavier weight class. And it's not for me to judge wherever you want to be. Like, do what's best for you. I go, but there's so many people who message me who are like, "Hey, Jeremy, I'm 42, I'm 38, I'm 51, and I want to gain 15 pounds." And I'm like, maybe you need to. I don't know. It just seems like a shit ton of effort in your life to do that at that stage in the game. Like, if you're 22 years old and you're 160 pounds, sure, dude. To gain 25 pounds is going to be a game changer. It's going to take you time. I go, but it's doable. Like, when you're on the other side of 40, unless you're like super, super ectomorph and you've never trained, adding 15 more pounds, I don't know if that's really the route people need to go. It's like, you told me a long time ago, it was like, you go from kind of beast mode to like warrior mode, kind of like this longevity piece. And I think that for most people is important. Like, because you can be, if you're a normal dude and you're probably like 5'10" or something and you weigh 170 pounds, you probably look like fucking Rambo, dude. Like, you probably look pretty good, man.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like you see, okay, so let's compare Jake Gyllenhaal to Conor McGregor in that Roadhouse movie. Now, I'm not saying I don't know if Jake Gyllenhaal took stuff or not, but we know Conor did. Okay, and what is the difference in those physiques in terms of what someone actually wants? There's only one difference. There's size, which, by the way, if you're on a camera, no one can tell.
No.
There was this one of the guys that's like he's like in his 50s and I forget his name. He exploded during the pandemic online. And like, he's really muscular and finally I saw him on the screen with someone who is like taller. And so, yeah, so this guy's probably like 5'6", 5'7", which by the way, that's fine, but he looks fucking huge
In the
alone
video.
on camera. But that's also mainly because he's so lean. And that's the thing, is as long as you're lean, you can look like a monster. And people have to just be honest with themselves too. Like if you feel you're in the need to gain 15 pounds, it likely means that you just have a body type. You just have a small, leaner body type. That's not you. And that's okay. But you can add 3 to 5 pounds of muscle, or you can stay the same weight and have more muscle. So yeah, trying to get it's never a good thing for 99.9% of people over 40 to add weight to their frame. I'm saying like that's not where our society is struggling right now. Not enough weight. Okay.
No.
There's an occasional guy who's super thin and rail thin that wants to add size, but to go after it from a weight standpoint versus like a strength muscle standpoint, that weight is always going to be hard for you to keep on. That weight, it's not your natural body type.
I know. And in Roadhouse, Gyllenhaal was shredded, bro.
Oh, dude, he was shredded to the bone. And by the way, if you polled 99.9% of guys out there, let's just say 99 out of 100 people would have rather looked like Gyllenhaal than McGregor in that movie. Now, McGregor, like when he was fighting, that's a different conversation because you're talking like no waist, wide shoulders, 165. Now he looks like he's 205. And it just, there's this inflation that happens when it's not a natural thing for your body. His head. Thing is, the head shape is always a tell. Your skull doesn't change. Like
it's a Barry Bonds head.
Yeah. This can't be. This is not normal. Finishing up, what's your training schedule? Like, what are you doing? What are your mainstays right now? I mean, I know it's a lot of sled and rucking, but I also know
before I forget, did you ever watch Iron Claw?
Iron Claw, what's that?
Yeah, remember we were at dinner? The wrestling movie. It's the Von Erichs, the Zac Efron.
Oh, I didn't even know that was out.
Yeah, it's called Iron Claw, dude. When you see him, bro, juiced up, like super. I mean, bro, like incredible. Like the conditioning, like regardless of what. I mean, people want to do a shit ton of drugs or no drugs. I don't care. Do whatever works best for you. But he's juiced to fuck up, and he looks like he's like Mr. Olympia, like conditioning wise, like I mean, because they have him. His haircut is terrible because it's like a '70s haircut. I go, but he's tan as fuck in it. He's always pumped up, and it's just like, I mean, dude, it's impressive to see like this. Because in Baywatch, you saw him; he was like this little shredded dude. It's the same thing. He's just like thicker. It's wild to watch, man. It's like McGregor times 10.
You know what's interesting? Because I saw him, I think it was a movie a year after he filmed that one, and there was like a dramatic shift in his face.
His face, yeah.
But look, you're making millions, and the juice is probably worth the squeeze. But
yeah, I mean, I say something about it, like A-Rod. People are like, oh, A-Rod did steroids. I'm like, well, he made like $300 million and married J-Lo. I'm like, seemed to work out for him.
And as long as you're not lying about it, I don't know if he's, you don't have to like admit, you don't have to dispense information about it, but as long as you're not saying this is natural, that's fine. We need to know what's real. We all need that. It's a service to do for the community to know what isn't real. But the average guy working at Datacon,
no, he's not going to get there. No,
probably not.
My training, yeah, super quick. I like do something every day. My steps are always pretty high. Like I think even like Monday's my kind of shit day of work. At some point, some of this is going to change, but I think I had like 18,000 steps or something like on Monday, just because I'm there a majority of the day and I do my own stuff. So my steps are always, I think we track everything now. So on average, it's probably 12, 13,000 a day, something like that. Some days it's a lot like that. Some days it's less. But yeah, like the things I do, I really do sled work a lot and I do carry a lot for sure. A couple of days a week of each. Sometimes I'll always just carry stuff like for whatever dumb reason. And it's just for movement in general. Like instead of just putting dumbbells back, like I'll just pick them up and carry them around for 50 yards in different variations. But I've been trying to play with like, because again, we do stuff for the app all the time. So I'm trying to create different things, just stuff that I've never really done before, or I guess haven't done as much. I'll do kind of like a push, pull, kind of push, pull day. So instead of doing just upper, lower, which I've historically done for years, I'm trying to just play with that. So like the other day, you would do like your squat work. So I was just doing like the heels elevated, like goblet squats, which are fucking miserable. I mean, any of the squat stuff is miserable because your quads are just on fire. But I was doing that on the same day as like incline bench, like things where I historically never would have done. I always would have loaded up all upper body, all lower body. And the one thing I probably would tell people is I do like those splits a lot, but to train and like to play sports, to play basketball or pickleball or box or whatever it is, if you're really, really going to do it and work out, you have to do the work before and after. Like you have to do the tissue work and you have to do the mobility work. And if you lag on that stuff, like bad things are going to happen. And you also just notice like the amount of overuse of certain things where I'm not saying one's better or worse because you can, make the argument either way for your training style and your body type or works for you. But to go in there and just like crush your lower body and do 6 or 4 or 5 or 6 lower body movements for 3-4 sets each, for most people you're crushed like for more than 2 or 3 days. Where if you could just go in and say, okay, on this day I'm going to do goblet squats, on this day I'm going to do like a hinge pattern, on the next day I'm going to do like sled work and carries, you're still working your lower body, but you're just spacing it out. I think for a lot of people, you're still going to do enough damage to keep your tissue and even, create new strength gains, but you're not going to be so crippled. So I do way more mobility stuff now than I've ever done. I do way more sled work than I've ever done. I do way more carries than I've ever done. I walk way more than I ever have. And I do hopefully less dumb shit. Just because it's like, if something doesn't feel good, I don't try to force it anymore. Where historically I probably would, because like you were younger and you could get away with it. And you thought like, oh, if I don't do this, I'll wither away and I'll look like shit. And then you realize like that's not the case, especially like once you've already built the base. And for most people who are older, you've probably been training for, a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades at this point. So you still are training hard, but you're just being smart about it and knowing like you don't have to crush yourself so you can't do something for 3-4 days in a row.
You know what I really like? The wheelbarrow handles for the Tank MX. That's fantastic.
Oh, bro, it's because we'll go behind. We have those too. So this tank, again, we have both tanks. The real one, I mean, the thing is a fucking beast to turn and to move if you really want to move it. But taking those wheelbarrow handles, and if you have it plate loaded, especially on that side, like we'll walk it from like my building all the way essentially to the street, and it doesn't go fast. Like when you have it on full mode, like it is a slow journey for sure. But no, it's a great, again, you're 2 birds with 1 stone. I think for anybody, if you're going to buy one, like I would definitely buy the wheelbarrow attachments because there's no other time I would do that movement or pattern in that way ever.
I mean, dude, I was doing cleans Like you can clean it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like it's a lot. I mean, that might be the single best piece of fitness equipment I've ever had my hands on. Because when you combine the hip harness with the straps that you can handheld, like rings or a TRX suspension trainer for those listening and not seeing visually, to the rope you can attach to pull. You can battle rope also on that thing. You can pull it like a rope pull, and then you add the wheelbarrow. Beyond the fact that the base sled itself has, 3 different levels that you can pull it from. I mean, like it's legit. And I bring the slant boards out too, and I'll even put, when I want to keep it stationary, I put a slant board on each of a tire so I can actually lean off of it if I want to do like a self-assisted squatting, or if I want it to stay in place for whatever movement I'm doing. I don't know, and I've been doing it barefoot on my front lawn too, just for the added, foot, ankle, toe benefits. Wow. And you can set it up too, where the plates, because I have one side where, because you mentioned the turning issue, I don't know if they had that attachment to
Yeah, I have it, because otherwise, okay, I don't know if you can turn it without it. Maybe you can.
You have to lift. I mean, because you can actually deadlift it even without the wheelbarrow attachments. If you you adjust the
arm. Yeah, it's like the adjustable arm. Yeah.
Yes, you have to basically like deadlift it up and move it, but you can take the weight plates off and do weight plate movements, put it back on. Like, I don't know, it's just like, now it's not cheap, but again, like the number of things you can do with that thing, like compared to a similarly priced Peloton bike. And they have a great starter unit that we both used for a couple years before we even got up to I would say the Rolls Royce. This thing is something else.
Yeah, I mean, it'll cost you money, but I'm like, if you were gonna spend money on the Peloton bike, I would spend money on this. Even if you don't have a ton of space, like if you can move it 30, 40 feet at a crack, I think that's worth it. But again, if you can just go outside, like even in your driveway or your front yard, I'm like, I think that's worth it. I just am a huge fan of, because again, the sled work, it's not just pushing and pulling the way you think about it. I mean, even if that was just it, but you can move dynamically with your stances, and you can you can deadlift with it essentially. Like I do, I'll face away from the machine, and I'll just essentially do a hinge pattern, and you can slow it down, and like it loads heavy enough, especially if you're pushing it for distance. And again, it can be brainless too if you want it to be. So if you're a person who just likes to run or just likes to ride a bike, like I'm not going to go ride a bicycle for 30 minutes. Like if Heather and I ride like on a beach cruise or some restaurant, sure, but I'm not out here riding a bike, and I'm sure as fuck not running for a half hour straight on concrete. I'm like, so this is it's low impact, and it's something mentally you can just put a podcast on or nothing and just go, just move.
Oh, dude, like, so, I played football and I was a lineman on both sides. And if I had this tool, like the thing, what sucked about playing football back in the 90s, early 2000s is you could only access that equipment in season unless you had spring ball. But like, so I couldn't, like during the summer, I couldn't train on a sled. I just couldn't do it. If I had this when I played football, bro, like, because low man wins, and the amount of like what people don't get as much with the sled, you're basically getting like no cost single leg squats when you're pushing a sled. No cost, because it's the moment you stop pushing, it stops. There's no eccentric overload coming into the muscles, so it's easy to recover from. It's easy on the joints. So it's like for anyone who's had a history of back and knee issues, but like wants to like do hard training that gives you strength and cardio. Like I don't think I literally put the sled in the heavy bag. Like that's the 1-2 punch for me to be lean and still be jacked, right? Like to still, walk into any room and, unless there's a pro athlete in there that's, 10, 20 years younger than me, that's, you're going to give me that. You pass me you give me the baton in the room. Those are the two things that I do. Like the sled keeps my legs jacked. The heavy bag keeps my upper body jacked. They're both full body, but then you can push and pull the sled. Like, I've been in heaven, bro. Like using that thing. I'm gonna do the wheelbarrow stuff later today. What an investment! What an investment in your health. And again, like I can just go and jump on it. You can adjust the resistance seamlessly because it's magnetic. I'm having a hard time finding a bad thing to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, for people, if you hate, doing mobility and warming up, which you should do it, I'm like, you can literally just do movement prep with it on like the lightest setting, just to move your body through space, push, pull. And then for people, like if you do have, or if you just hate like certain training patterns, like you don't feel comfortable doing barbell work, squatting, which I don't think most people probably should anyway. If you're just the average gym goer, there's just better ways to get there. If you don't like doing like loaded lunges, because you have knee issues or you just don't feel comfortable doing them, like you can get pretty much all of your stuff done just using the sled, and it's way less painful for the most part. I still think you should do some kind of squat and kind of hinge variations and things like that. I go, but even if you hated doing that, I'm like, you could get away with most of it by just doing sled work if you're just creative enough. And again, I've never, knock on wood, had any pain doing it. If you're someone who would waste time doing fucking calf raises forever, you could just push the sled because it's way more time efficient. It's way more beneficial. And depending on, how you do it and where you're at, like in terms of pushing through your big toe, just the ankle mobility, there's just so many pieces to it that you're taking like 5 other movements you would do in the gym and you can just do it with the sled work. And so that's kind of my biggest selling point to anybody.
And again, the built-in cardio, bro, like that's so important as you, because, we're entering, soon entering like prime heart attack. Like we're there, like, and this is the time where people are most likely to get like, those early heart attacks in their like, 40s, early 50s. If they don't know something's there, something terrible happens. So that's what I'm saying is like for men in particular, I know how men are like with regards to like most men always prioritize weights over conditioning or strength over cardio. That's kind of how we're molded, if you will. But when you can get the cardio built into your strength work, or if you want to call it strength cardio or metabolic, whatever people want to call things, I don't give a shit. But you're getting that, like, and like you said too, I can make it mindless. I can just set the clock for 20, 30 minutes and just it just starts with me pushing it, then pulling it, and then I don't know what's going to happen. I could run that flow the whole way, or I can start to change levels, or I can add in an attachment, or I can do some push-ups. I can burn out push-ups before I push it, so that my chest is already pumped, and it's like a stack. Or I can hit some like lunges. So the options are really endless with it. You can add calisthenics or weight stuff on top of it. So I don't think there is, and I'm biased too because like I'm just good at the sled, man. Like I was always that guy like where we would do whenever we did the 7-man sled, I would be on one side. Typically what they do is they'll put like the 2 strongest guys on one side. And then the goal was to tilt the sled. Like that's how we compete. You tilt the sled towards your side. And I would always turn that motherfucker because, it's a mental thing to like, they even says it on the piece of equipment, don't quit. You keep going. It is, you can get nauseous. And by the way, what's interesting too is we're about to close this out because I know how to breathe now. And actually when I do the sled, I tend to have a breathing rhythm based on my strides, because back in the day, I would just hold my breath, like, dude, the shit we did when we were young, it's crazy. I don't even know how I was able to do it. And I played both sides in special teams in high school. I never left the field. Like you're playing the whole game. So I wish I could go back, bro, have this sled, know how to breathe, avoid all these knee injuries that are like just, unfortunate obstacles, but this is what we do is you keep going.
Yeah. And that's what I would tell anybody. I'm like, you're a normal dude who hates aerobic work and you hate the things that you're not great at. I'm like, allows you to do it while still, like, I guess if you want to call it like your muscle building cardio or whatever people want to frame it in your mind, so you don't think of it as the way you think of just traditional aerobic work. And it's, to me, it's way more fun, and you are going somewhere. Like, where I'm not, and again, the assault bike works great. We throw it in our workouts, but you're not going anywhere. Like, the calories move, I go, but it's like a defeating workout to me. It's like, because I just sit there and I just pedal this endless fucking bike to hell. Where the sled, I can actually, like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm actually moving it from point A to point B. And again, it's the easiest thing to just, it can be the base of every workout, or a lot of your workouts, and just adding in the pieces of like push-ups, squats, carries, overhead pressing, uh, pull-ups, you name it. It's really simple to do. And it's something, honestly, it's like, I look at the sled stuff as like rucking. You can do it every single day if you want to, and you can kill yourself some days, and some days you can just kind of go through the motions. And that's the beauty of, especially that sled, because you can change the resistance within seconds. So yeah, that's probably, next to mobility, doing a sled is probably the number 2 thing I do the most right now.
Or just, 5 or 10 minute starters and finishers to your typical, workout. Just it's most gyms have one. Almost all gyms now, they're set up with a turf area and a sled. And you start there, and then but I'm going to just tell you, like, at some point you're going to want to get one for yourself at home, especially in the summer now, man. Like, what more do you want? You're getting the tan, you're getting the vitamin D, you're getting the sweat. The only thing this thing doesn't do is it doesn't mow the lawn. But in the desert, it's not true, the grass can grow, but that's the one thing it is missing. Like, if it could also mow the lawn, this thing is second to none. It already is.
Yeah, no, it's legit. That's why it's a huge, I'll do it forever, essentially.
I'll put links and show notes for sled content and what we use. Jay, you want to final thoughts on today's episode?
I mean, it's a lot of shit. It's 2 hours worth of us talking shit about basketball and boxing and being old dudes who do fitness, man. But always a pleasure.
It's better than working at Datacon, my friend. That's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, bro, like, it could always be worse.
Yeah, no, I'll take this over the alternative any day for sure.
Guys, thank you for listening. Please follow Jeremy Scott Fitness on all outlets. I'll put links in show notes. Check out my Ultimate Boxing Trainer now on his exclusively now at his app, the Jeremy Scott Fitness app. And I have boxing content on YouTube here as well, obviously with the ads. But if you want ad free, check out Jay Scott's platform. And again, all his other great muscle building, fat loss content. It's a pleasure to always a pleasure to talk, man, and share information with both of our people.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Peace.